Welcome back to the process of the Paraprosdokian, a podcast where I, Nathaniel Philip Mosier, aka the Paraprosdokianist, go through my week and share with you how I patiently endured the pain of life with the help of people in order to engage with my purpose, gain some perspective, and live to tell the tale. Along the way, I'll share with you some life lessons, show you how you can prepare for life lessons to come, live a life of sacrificial offering, teach those willing to teach, listen to those willing to teach, and hopefully discover some Paraprosdokians. I say this on every episode, so if you want to fast forward a little bit, that's okay. But I will do this every time because this concept is foreign to a lot of people. Now you say that's a whole lot of words that start with P. Well, let me tell you, it's an all on purpose. A Paraprosdokian is a figure of speech in which the latter part of a sentence, phrase, or larger discourse is surprising or unexpected in a way that causes the reader or listener to reframe or reinterpret the first part. I think Paraprosdokians are a lot like life because life can turn in unexpected ways, making you reevaluate the moments that came before, changing your perspective. I think pain can lead to purpose, leading to perspective, and that process can be summed up in a Paraprosdokian as long as you live to tell the tale. Sometimes to get through the pain, you're going to need a whole lot of patience. Now, in the last episode, we went over pain, and so this is patience. Skip forward. Now, wanted to discuss something. I went evangelizing for the first time. I'm part of this young adults ministry at this church called Core Church, and they meet every Friday, and I've only been once or twice, and I showed up after a long hiatus. I was gone on the East Coast, and I came, and they weren't there. So I said, "Where are you guys?" And they said, "We're out evangelizing." And so I went out to Santa Monica and observed. I wasn't expecting to do it. I was just expecting to watch people, but I ended up talking to a few people. Now, one of the conversations, one of the young men, I was talking, and this question got brought up: how can we have free will, and yet God is outside of time and understands everything that will ever happen and everything that has happened? How can we then have free will? And the person speaking to him, she said, "I know it's confusing, but it is what it is. And this is how it is." And I realized I could explain this to somebody. So now, let's use one of the greatest tools I've been, chess. I realized I could explain this using a chess computer, all right? And this is something I learned very recently. So, and I explained this to someone recently, and they were like, "Wow, this is so cool." I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it on the podcast." So now, let me show you. This is a chess computer. This is a chess board. You're right. This is a game that ended very quick. I think I had to resign very fast. So this is a good example of. Anyways. So right here, this is a thing called depth. Now, depth is however many moves ahead the computer is looking. Now, a depth of 20 is 10 moves because it's 20 moves total, given that white and black both move back and forth, right? So you could see right here, it's calculating all the moves, right? It's a depth of 20. 10 moves ahead. Now, I learned something very interesting. I was reading a book, I believe, called Moonwalking with Einstein. And it talked about expertise and specifically memory, because this man was trying to train for the Memory Olympics. Highly recommend this book about expertise. I learned something, that the average working memory, which is the short-term memory for human beings, is around 7 to 10 items at a time. Now, why is this significant? Well, for example, we have phone numbers, right? We have an area code of 3, right? And then we have a chunk of 3 and 4. Right? And so the human brain also processes in 3, right? We have 3, 7, and 10. These numbers are numbers of completion in the Bible. It's not some superstition. This is just how the brain works. And so, a lot of things in religion, people are like, "Oh, it's just a random thing that's dogmatic." No, these things come from somewhere. 3, 7, 10. Average human working memory, about 7 to 10 items at a time, right? It does not go into our deeper unconscious. Now, right here, look at the maximum depth. I said depth. The maximum depth the minimum depth you can use a computer is 14. 7 items. You can go all the way to 99, unlimited. Now watch this. Let me go to unlimited real quick. See what happens. All right, you see it's calculating, right? It got stuck at 20. All right, I think it's at unlimited. Now let's see. Oh, maybe it already. Right, let's go all the way to the end, because the further you go, the more positions are available. Right, it keeps stopping at 20. Maybe because there's not enough here. I also didn't. You can also calculate many different numbers of lines, many different variations of possibility. Now see how it changes. It changes. It changes. It changes. It changes. It changes. All right. It's calculating, calculating, calculating. All right. So if this were to just keep going, you need a tremendous amount of processing power to calculate unlimited depths. Now, people use supercomputers for this. Grandmasters will have many different people calculating millions upon millions of moves, many different lines, right? To find, maybe they find in a 28 move sequence in their opening that they've analyzed a million times, they find something novel in the 5th choice, right? Okay. But it takes a tremendous amount of processing power, and my computer doesn't have that, right? It's not meant for that. I when I first really got into chess and I was playing tournaments, I was trying to analyze at all these high depths and leave it running, and it would just burn my computer. You couldn't do anything else. How many possible moves chess after 2 moves? Watch this. After the first 2 moves in a game of chess, there are 400 possible next moves with each turn, right? Check this out. After 2 half moves, 400, 3, 8,000, all the way by 15. This is 2 something trillion, billion, it's massive. A massive amount of possible positions. Okay? We can only analyze at a very small depth when we're in our waking conscious state. We compress data through our eyes, through our senses. We can only see a few moves ahead. If you saw too many moves ahead, you would overheat. That is what happens with anxiety. You can't figure out what's going to happen in 5 years. That is not what the point is. You can look 7 to 10 moves ahead. There are too many variables. We do not have the processing power. Now, I think that dreams happen when our body, all the energy, it takes away all the energy that we're focusing on all these different processes, right? Digesting goes away. We digest, but we're at a subdued state. Now that allows us to focus our energy. We're also processing for a longer amount of time, sometimes 8 hours. That allows us to process further and see things. That's why a lot of people get revelation in dreams, right? That's another reason why fasting, right, takes processing power away from the digestive process and allows us to receive revelation, right? Now, if you understand this process of the depth, right? God is unlimited consciousness, unlimited power, and he can see every single possible variation. And people are, oh, he's not a person. Come on. I'm using a pronoun to describe something that is not a human, okay? He can see all possible positions. This is 5 lines. Imagine millions upon millions of lines, millions upon possible positions into the future. And now how does this allow us to have free will? Well, because the second you choose any one of those moves, let's go to a position. Let me show you what happens. Okay, let's start a new position, a brand new position. There we go. First move, E4, most common move. See, my computer can't handle, or the depth. Look at all these positions that arise. Now, C5 is the first choice. What happens if I don't play C5? I play knight. Oh, wait, sorry. This is E6. I play E5, right? These are common move orders. See how everything changes? They have to calculate all these different possibilities. And if I had a supercomputer that was fast, right, and that wasn't processing all this other data and recording this and send it to you, it would be much faster. And it processes all this data. Now, this is just my computer. This internet connection, this really crappy setup, I don't even have a stream. It's very poor processing power. And it can already calculate all these positions. If God is infinite consciousness and can analyze a million different possible positions and every single outcome and see, then that means that the second you choose any move, God knows where it's going to go before it even happens, because he can calculate further than you instantly. They say light as a particle is everywhere all at once, but we don't see it that way. Now, each new move brings about a new position, and things can happen, right? And so we have the freedom to choose different moves, and yet God is outside of time. It all happens at the same time because it's instant. The calculation is instant. Our perception is not instant. So, comment if you need more clarification, but that's how I conceptualize this. And it allows for the possibility of free will, and it also allows for the possibility of an omniscient God. Now, I read this book, and this is a very long book, but I'm not gonna. It's called My Descent into Death. I was watching this YouTube channel with near-death experiences, and this guy went to hell, got saved from hell, met Jesus, and everything he's saying is corroborated by the Bible. But it's a wonderful, beautiful book. But he says this: in my conversation with Jesus and the angels, they told me about God. I asked them what God is like, and they told me this: God knows everything that will happen, and more important, God knows everything that could happen. From one moment to the next, God is aware of every possible variable of every event and each outcome. He doesn't control or dictate the outcome of every event, which would be a violation of God's creation. But every bit of matter and energy has its own integrity and course to fulfill. Every living creature has its own will that must be expressed. Each conscious being has its own learning to be experienced. God created all things to be what they are and knows that the ultimate outcome is part of the Creator's design. Every action serves God's purpose by fulfilling its nature, including the total range of activity from negative to positive. The outcome will always serve God's ultimate purpose, no matter how long or how impossible it appears to us. Guess what happens in chess at the end of every single game? Somebody wins, or it's a tie. Whether we humans understand why things happen or appreciate how things happen is unimportant, because we are not in control of creation. Creatures are not the creator, and this is not our world to control. Our job is to discover how we can be a part of the divine plan. God has given humans a divine image and likeness in order to comprehend our role in the divine plan. We have the free will to choose. God sees our mistakes and allows them to happen, knowing we will suffer the consequences of our mistake. He sees our right decisions and enjoys the knowledge that we have taken another step closer to God. Both can be true, but our compressed brains cannot see, and that's okay. So, I'm going to go live life like chess, but not live life like I'm a chess computer. That's the end of this episode. I want to do episodes where I interview people, but I'm probably going to have to figure out, I'm going to have to set up my studio that way. I think I'm going to interview my grandma for the first episode. Might have to do some crude setup. And also I've met a friend from church who has had some very prophetic dreams. And so I'd love to interview her for that. But stay tuned for the next episode where I will do announcements about what's next and what I'm working on, and play some chess, which takes a lot of processing power. So I'm going to let my computer rest a little bit. All right. See you in the next episode.